Laura Smith here from Power Food Families. Hopefully I can inspire you to use real food for real families in real life. Today I'm really excited about what we're gonna make. We're gonna do bread. And I love that when you make bread, you're building your muscles too. So I think that's so great. You could use a mixer. So this is my mixing bowl for my Big Bosh. I can usually do like 20 cups of flour in here. So when you're doing big batches and you're not feeling very strong for the day, then a mixer is great. But if you want to get some extra credit and build some muscle, then I suggest you just use a simple mixing bowl and a wooden spoon, and then you're going to use your hands a lot too, so make sure your hands are clean. But we're going to make what my favorite thing is that I learned to make when I was about a teenager, probably middle school, was homemade bread. We had a family of 9 and we did not buy store-bought bread. I thought store-bought bread was a treat, but my mom would always make homemade bread for us, and so I kind of took over that role in the summers. And as you could imagine, it took a lot of bread to feed our family, and so I did that in the summer and I learned to love to make bread. So that's still something that I really enjoy doing for my family. We do buy some store-bought bread because, let's get real, life, I don't always have time to make homemade bread. Sourdough is my favorite, but the timing takes a little longer and you don't get the results as quickly. So if you want to make some yummy homemade bread, you want your house to smell delicious and inviting, then just good old, I do a half white, half wheat bread so that you're getting the nutrition of whole wheat. But maybe your family won't accept the whole wheat quite as well. So if you start half and half, usually it turns out great. Everybody loves it and you're still getting the whole grains in there. So I'm also going to be adding some oatmeal, some cold oatmeal to our bread. That might seem weird, but it was in the fridge and I need to use it. It adds moisture, adds a great flavor and texture to the bread. I want to give you a little tip. So resistant starches are amazing for your body. You might wonder what that is. It's like prebiotics for your gut. And it's when you cook a grain or legumes and then you cool it down, and that creates a resistant starch. So the heating and then the cooling. So these oats are left over. If you use leftover rice, maybe you could use rice for like a fried rice dish with a bunch of veggies, then you're getting those resistant starches. So today I'm going to add some resistant starches into the bread. And what that does is it slows down the blood sugar spike because it resists that digestion in the small intestine. So thus resistant starches. And it aids in feeling full longer and then of course the fiber from the whole grains. So really it has a lot of great benefits, but aim for resistant starches in your foods. If you want to cook some grains or some beans, cook them ahead of time and then have them for leftovers and you're getting even better benefit. So here we go, we're gonna make some bread today. My favorite bread recipe comes from an old Betty Crocker cookbook that my mom had, and so it's one of the few recipes I have memorized. So here goes. About 3.5 cups of room temperature water. You don't want it too hot or your yeast will get killed. It doesn't like it too hot or too cold. So like bath temperature, a little bit warm, and the warmth helps to bloom the yeast in the bowl. So I'm just gonna put the water in first. I put a little less than 3.5 cups because I'm putting in the oats, which had liquid in it to cook it. So just put in the water, and then I like to put in the sugar to help the yeast grow a little bit better. The sugar kind of feeds the yeast. Okay, look at this funny old-fashioned grease bowl. Ha! We use it to put sugar in. Yeah, sugar's not a health food. We don't eat it all the time, but it helps to brown the bread, and we just put a little bit. So usually I put about 2 tablespoons of sugar. You can use brown sugar, you can use honey, you can use anything that you want to make it sweet, maple syrup. So it all is sugar in your blood. So if you're not using dates, then any sugar will do the trick. So about 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then we're going to use some yeast. So yeast comes in different forms. This is from Costco. I like to buy it in bulk. This is 2 pounds. That's probably a lot. If you store your yeast in the fridge, it can lose its if you store your yeast in your cabinet, it can lose its potency and it won't work very well. So what I do is I store this in the freezer, and I fill a little container to keep in the fridge just so it's easier to access. So you can buy a variety of different types of yeast. I would not suggest buying the little packets that you buy. There's like 3 to a packet. Those are going to be pretty expensive. So if you're going to make bread a lot, which I would recommend because your family will probably love you for it, then get it in bulk. And we're going to use 2 tablespoons of yeast. And this is what's going to give it the rise and the softness. So this is active dry yeast. That's the most common. And now I found that the yeast is no longer big granules. They're just really teeny tiny. So it's called like rapid rise usually, but you really can mix it all together at once, and I find it works just fine. But for today, we're gonna activate it in the water. I ran out of my little container. So here we go, 2 tablespoons of yeast. And then we're just gonna mix it up a little bit. It's the sugar and water, and just let it bloom a little bit. I'm not even gonna wait for it. So this is what it looks like. It's gonna be floating in there. You could get, I don't know where to buy cake yeast. That's another kind, but it's very different. So look for active dry yeast. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of make a soaker. We're gonna add some of the flour in. So I have some whole wheat flour. I grind this in a grain mill that I have. You can buy whole wheat flour. When you buy whole wheat flour in the store, it tends to lose its nutrients as it sits on the shelf because it's that whole grain that's then broken down. So fresh whole wheat flour is gonna taste the best. So if you have a great source to get freshly ground flour, that's gonna be your best way to go. But if you can just buy whole wheat flour at the store and that's all you have, then that's awesome too. That works, and it's a whole grain. It's gonna be much better than the white flour, which has a lot of the nutrients taken out. So you can even get whole wheat flour in bulk if it's fresh, and then you can stick it in the fridge or freezer. That'll help it last longer so it doesn't oxidize so fast. So I'm gonna just start by putting I'm gonna put in my whole wheat flour here, which is gonna be about 5 cups of whole wheat flour. Oh, I don't know if I count. 4, 5, maybe? Okay, we'll find out later, because when we use our hands, we can tell just how much flour we put in. So I'm gonna put that in, mix it up with a wooden spoon. Okay, we're gonna just mix it. It's gonna be very watery, but this way it's just gonna it's gonna be a gloopy mess is what this is gonna be. This is kind of what you call a sponge. You make this moist, yeasty dough to get started. Then you can let it sit here for like 10 minutes just to develop a better flavor and a better gluten structure, but we don't have time for that. We're busy moms. We don't have time to wait, so we're just gonna mix it all today. So this is my whole wheat flour in 3.5 cups of water, 5 cups of whole wheat flour, and then I'm gonna add a heaping tablespoon of salt. Salt also helps to brown the dough. So if you leave it out, you'll find out it's tasteless and it won't have a very good color. So a heaping tablespoon of salt. If you put this directly with the yeast, sometimes the yeast won't raise very well. So I suggest putting flour in and then put in the salt. And let's see, so we also put in the sugar. We're gonna put in just a couple of tablespoons of oil. Olive oil gives it a great flavor. Use whatever fat you wanna use, but just a little bit goes a long way. When I make my sourdough, there's no oil in it, but because this is a bread dough, the oil helps to make it more soft and it helps it to last just a little bit longer. So I like to put just a little bit of oil in there. It's a great texture for if you make sandwiches and things, and then it's not quite so hard. I'm gonna go ahead and add in my oats right now. This is a good stage to do that. So the recipe that I use doesn't usually call for oats. So the fun part about making bread for me is that you don't really have to make it exact, but you do want to make sure the texture of your dough, of your final dough, is not going to be too sticky or too dry, because that's going to affect your final product. So this looks really lumpy and weird with oil and oats. The oats even have a little bit of cinnamon, so that'll make the bread taste good. So I have the 5 cups of whole wheat flour, and I'm gonna get my giant bucket because I like to bake, so all my stuff is in giant bins. And we're using our muscles, of course, today because we're building muscles, so we're not afraid of that. I'm gonna first start with less flour than it calls for, because depending on the air, if the air is more moist, you're gonna need more flour. If the air is really dry, you're gonna need less flour. So if you start out with less, then you can always add more, but if you put too much, then you have to add the liquid. It kind of messes it up. I do have oats in here. It's gonna be kind of moist. So I'm gonna add 4 cups of white flour. 3. So this is a ratio of about half white, half wheat. I find it gives it a really good texture that's not too crumbly, that kids don't complain about. I think it's pretty great, so it works well. Now the fun part, we get to get messy. So if you have rings on, it might be a good idea to take those off because the dough is gonna stick in your rings and that's not very clean out. Something that always frustrated me when my mom would make bread growing up is she would use this spongy thing to clean out the bread dough in the bowl, and then it would leave dry, gross, stuck on dough bits to the sponge. That was kind of a pet peeve of mine, but I should just be grateful that my mom baked for us. She's amazing. So I'm just working in the flour. All right, we're just gonna work in the flour with our hands because that's the fun thing to do. You're gonna develop better grip strength, which is they say grip strength is better grip strength for longevity. This is what we're doing here. Okay, so if your kids like to get messy, this is something they can help with. Or they can add in the flour. That's a great job for kids. They can count for you. But something fun that I noticed my mom doing this a couple weekends ago when I was visiting is she had our little nephew standing on a bucket right next to her, and he got to watch the whole process. So he was learning how to make bread. It was really exciting. And then he got to make his own little teddy bear. That was something my mom was really good at, involving us and letting us be a part of it. Kids don't have to be in there very long. They have a short attention span. They might just be there a few minutes, but just that curiosity of being in the kitchen makes it fun for them, and they'll want to be in there more and ask questions and be a part of your food journey. So invite the kids in when you can. So what I've done is I've made this too dry, I realized. So I'm gonna add a little bit of water because this is really hard to knead. That's all right, it'll just make me stronger, haha, but it's too dry. I don't want it this dry. I'm gonna add just a little bit of water. So remember, if you're gonna add water, make sure it's room temperature, not too hot. It's gonna be a little bit squishy. Isn't it fun to just be guessing when you're baking? Not having to be perfect. Usually when you bake something, it should be perfect. But my philosophy is, it's better if we don't need perfection. Doesn't this sound fun and squelchy? Haha. Oh, it smells good. It smells like yeast with a little bit of cinnamon from those oats. So once you get it all, the flour kind of mixed in, you're gonna need to knead it for 8 to 10 minutes by hand. Woohoo! I told you we're building muscle today. So awesome. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So once you get all that flour mixed in there, you can put just a dusting of flour on the counter. If you don't want it to stick, make sure your surface is clean. And I just put a little dusting. Don't make it too much. You can always add more. You don't want to dry out the dough with too much flour on the counter. So when you knead your dough, and look at this. So my hands were really gloopy. Now they're not so gloopy. Not too much stuck dough. So when you knead the dough, it will kind of pull off the bits of the dough on your hand. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna pull up from the back and then push it to the front, push back with your palms. So you're gonna go forward and then push back, then rotate it just about a quarter of a turn each time. So forward, push back, forward, push back. And if you feel like you need more flour on your counter, if it's sticking, you can dust it with just a little bit more flour. I should not have left these things on my wrist, because you're using the palms of your hands like this to push it. So you're going forward and back. I'm gonna dust just a little bit more flour. So this is the fun part. 8 to 10 minutes of kneading the dough. And then, so what I love about bread is it's really not a lot of hands-on time making the bread. It takes just the kneading time. You know, mixing is a couple minutes, then you knead it for 8 to 10 minutes, usually more when it's a whole grain. If it's white bread, it'll develop gluten a little bit faster because with a whole grain, it kind of tends to cut the gluten structure and it's a little bit looser. So when it's whole grain, it is gonna take a little bit longer to develop, but you gotta work your muscles, so just look at it as a workout. And you're not gonna over knead it when you're kneading it by hand. In a mixer, it could get too hot and it could over knead. But when you're mixing it by hand, you don't have to worry about that. So we're gonna mix this for about 8 to 10 minutes and then we plop it in the bowl and it's gonna raise or proof for about an hour. Depends on how warm your home is and how moist the air is. So if you want it to proof a little bit faster, you could put it in the oven that's very, very warm but not hot. So if you have a proofing setting in your oven and then put a little bit of water in some boiling water in a jar or something next to it, and that'll help proof it really nice. But you don't need anything fancy. Usually I just put it in a bowl with a towel. If the air's really dry, you could use a little moist towel and leave it there to raise till it's about double in size. So that means it'll be twice this size after it's done proofing, and then we're gonna make it into loaves. So really not a lot of hands-on time, and you're doing double duty of working your arm muscle. Okay, we're gonna see how the gluten's coming. This is called the window pane test. If you can kind of pull it without tearing it too much, and you can see through it, then you know it's done. So I think it still has some work. We're gonna need some more. My arms are getting tired. Okay, look at how smooth and elastic this is. It's amazing. So when we started, it was all gloppy, it would tear easily. So we're gonna see how we're doing here. I'd say it's doing pretty good. My arms are tired. I got a good workout, so I'm gonna call it good. I'm gonna say that this gluten is developed pretty well. So the gluten is what's already that's what's naturally in wheat. So people with gluten sensitivity or gluten intolerance, you know, that's why they can't have wheat products, because it's a kind of a starch that's in the wheat. So anyway, I didn't get my dough scraper. That's my favorite thing to clean the counter. I'll show you that later. But what you're gonna do, a lot of recipes will say to oil the bowl first before you put the dough in there. I don't bother oiling it. I like to keep as little oil as possible. So the bowl's not really that clean, but once I put the dough in and then I let it raise and I pull it out, it tends to pull off from the sides really easily. I don't have a problem. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a towel, a clean kitchen towel. Let's see if I can find one. I should have gotten one out. Okay, so just a cotton kitchen towel, preferably not with any fuzz on it. If your air's really dry, you could just mist the towel with a little bit of water. I'm just gonna leave it here. We're gonna go and do something else. Go work in the yard. It's sunny outside, it's beautiful. So I'm gonna leave this here for about 45 minutes to an hour until it's about double in size. So this bowl is gonna look kind of domed over. Make sure your bowl is big enough. Otherwise, you're gonna have a mess on your, so make sure the bowl's big enough for the dough to get double in size. And I'm gonna go wash my hands and then we'll come back. Okay, so we're back at the dough and real life has happened. So it's actually been like an hour and a half since I mixed it up. So the good thing about dough is it's pretty forgiving. So if you wanna make it into loaves 45 minutes or an hour and a half later, so be it. If you need to put it in the fridge after it's ready, or you know, when it's not quite ready and you can't come back to it for a few hours, cover it up good and put it in the fridge, bring it out, and then you can make it into loaves. But you know if it's ready to be made into loaves is if you put your finger in and it doesn't fill up quickly. So this is a little overproofed because it doesn't fill up at all. So it's pretty puffy, which is kind of fun. So this is another fun job for your kids. Let them punch down the dough. And I have a bird that's flying in our kitchen. That's lovely, our bird. But anyway, so just punch it down so you can fold it like this. I should have put some flour on my hands, or you can get your hands wet. That's one way to do it. I like to just dump it on the counter and scrape it out. dump it on the counter. What we're gonna do is we're gonna just spray our bread pans and we're gonna make it into loaves. Okay, if you don't have any loaf pans, not to worry. You could make it like a French bread loaf on a sheet pan, but I'm gonna show you just how to shape it into loaves. And we're gonna use 3 loaf pans for this recipe. Sometimes it's fun to make a few different things. If you want to make this into pizza dough or into rolls, you can do that. But today we're just going to use loaf pans. If you don't have any, go to a local thrift store. See if you can find any there. Make sure you spray the pans so they're easier to get out. Technically, these pans are supposed to release the dough, but I find they tend to get stuck. I think this is all out. It's spraying all over. Okay, this is my favorite kitchen tool of all time. It is a dough scraper, a bench scraper, and I like to divide my dough with it. So I'm gonna divide my dough into 3 parts, 3 equal parts because I have equal sized bread pans. You can weigh it so that they're all the same if you want, but I don't really go for perfection. We just go for, so I'm gonna move the camera so you can see what my hands are doing. But there's one thing I wanted to tell you about earlier that I forgot, and that is when you cook, try to use iodized salt because iodine is really important for your thyroid. So I was going to tell you that when I added the salt today. I used iodized salt. A lot of times people will use sea salt because they feel like it's better for you, but you do need iodine in your diet, and salt is one of those that's fortified when they started noticing iodine deficiencies in people. So unless you eat a lot of sea vegetables, that's another way to get iodine. But other than that, well, dairy products will have iodine because of they use it to clean the cow's udders before they milk the cows. But really, iodized salt is a good way to just you only need trace amounts of iodine, but it is important for your health. So I use that in my cooking just to make sure that we get it. So that was just a little fun tip about iodine. We're gonna make the loaves. I'll show you how we do those. I have 3 balls here of dough, and we're just gonna use one. Sometimes you can use a rolling pin if you want to roll it out. I'm just gonna use my hands today. The rolling pin can kind of help get out the bubbles, but then it makes it really flat. So you want a smooth surface on the top, and you want a counter that's not very sticky. So we're gonna put a little bit of a light dusting of flour, put the smooth part on top, and we're gonna roll it, come and roll. So you're gonna tuck it in good so you don't have air bubbles. I do have. So you have a big log like this. This is the fun part. This is what my mom taught me. So then you chop the edges, you top the ends so it's about the same. You want the dough to touch the ends of your bread pan here and here. So I chopped it about the length of the bread pan, and then you're just gonna tuck in both ends like this, and cradle it like a baby. So when I teach people how to make dough, I just say, pretend like it's a baby. You gotta be gentle with it, and you're just gonna tuck in the sides and the ends so that it looks pretty. So you will see on the sides it kind of has a little tuck. You won't really see that. It's gonna raise in the pan. It's gonna be beautiful. I like to just gently cradle the sides and put it in the pan like this. You don't want to smash it down too much because you want it to be rounded and domed on top. It's going to raise better. It's going to look prettier. So you'll see little flecks in here. I put flax in my oats and some cinnamon, like I said. So that adds a little bit of color and a little taste and texture. So that's kind of fun. So make sure when you are making the loaves, you're going to cover them up again. If your dough dries out on the outside, then it won't raise very well. So you want to make sure it stays nice and moist. So you're going to cover it with a towel. If the air is dry, just spritz the towel with some water. So we're going to do the same thing with the other loaves. We're going to make 3 loaves here. Smooth side down, roll it. Oh, I need a little more flour. It's sticking. Okay, so you're going to roll it, chop the sides, cradle it like a baby, make it look pretty. If it's kind of stuck, you can use your bench scraper to kind of help get it off. And then they should be touching the ends of the pan. That's how you know you have the right amount of dough in there. Oh, nice. I got a tablespoon with it. Push it out, kind of push out the air bubbles. Flip it over so the smooth side is on the outside. Roll it up tight. Chop the ends. Cradle it like a baby. So 3rd time's the charm. So hopefully you can be able to make these at home comfortably And if it doesn't look perfect, it doesn't matter. It'll still taste wonderful. So I have them all stacked up nicely here. And then I'm just gonna cover it again and then wait for about, usually the second proof takes a little less time, so about 45 minutes. You wanna check on it. If it overproofs, then when you bake it, it'll fall in the oven. So you want it to be able to spring back a little bit after your finger touches it. So it'll be about doubled. It'll just kind of dome over the top of these bread pans. So we're gonna come back in about 45 minutes and we're gonna stick it in the oven. And the last thing before you walk away from your counter, you're all done making your counter dirty. So use your bench scraper to clean off your counter. It'd be awesome if kids knew how to do this, but they'll watch your example of cleaning up after yourself when you cook. And hopefully they will take notes and do the same. But just go ahead and scrape off your counter with the dough scraper, and then it's really easy to wipe off. Sometimes cleaning up dough is not very fun, but when you just use the dough scraper, it works awesome. Throw it in your compost, in the garbage, in the sink, whatever, and then you can easily wipe off your counter, and it's ready to go for the next cooking adventure. Okay, the bread is looking good. It's ready to go in the oven. So if we poke it, it's gonna fill in a little bit, but not all the way. That means it's ready. We'll see if we leave a fingerprint for the oven. So we're gonna stick it in the oven at 375 degrees for about 30 minutes. You wanna be able to put in a temperature thermometer, stick it in the center of the loaf and test it. It should be about 190 degrees to 200 degrees. You don't want sticky dough, so it should be baked thoroughly. You can also, when it's finished baking, you can tap it and see if it sounds hollow, and that's another way to test to see if it's done. So we'll put it in the oven. Okay, we're gonna load up the bread on the middle, kind of the bottom middle of the oven. That way it can cook evenly. Woohoo! Okay, 30 minutes, here we go. Okay, now we have a beautiful loaf of bread. Now that you've watched me make it, I challenge you to go home and make your own loaf. Okay, it's gonna be tempting to cut into it right after it's done, but let it cool. Otherwise, it could be gummy on the inside. Let's see what the inside looks like here. Woohoo! So you want a nice, a little bit airy crumb, but not big holes. So beautiful. It smells good. I think it should taste good. We're gonna have it for dinner with some Thai crunch, miso crunch salad, something like that. But if you want to make healthy eating a lifelong habit for you and for your family, then go ahead and send me an email at sarah@powerfoodfamilies.com, and I'd love to talk with you. I do a free 45-minute consultation so that you can see what it might look like working together to help you reach your goals.